Hi, everyone, and welcome to Creative Conversations, an online web series podcast type of thing here with Titan Theater Company. My name is Lenny Banovez. I am the artistic director, and today we have the newly minted artistic director of Milwaukee Chamber Theater, Brent Hazelton, a dear friend of mine. Brent, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm great. It's good to be speaking with you and not staring at a spreadsheet. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. You know, it's funny since we've been doing these. I've been seeing a lot more people that I see usually about one time a year. And now I'm talking, I mean, you and I, we text back and forth quite a bit, but now I'm seeing faces more than just my audition tour, you know, in coffee shops in Milwaukee when I'm there for exactly 48 hours. So it's good to see you. Beautiful office, by the way, too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's the basement. It gets the job done.
Yeah, basement's one of the luxuries we don't have here in New York.
Right.
This is a fancy backdrop in my bedroom.
Nice. It's
so,
gorgeous.
You know, it's all about the backdrop. But anyway, back to what we were here to talk about. Milwaukee Chamber Theater. Why don't you give us a brochure? Tell us all the good stuff you can about Milwaukee Chamber.
Yeah, Chamber is a 45-year-old SPT 8+ company. We produce 5 shows a year in the Broadway Theater Center. We're a tenant company. We don't own or control our own space, so we rent theater space, rehearsal space, and office space from 2 separate entities. We are currently transitioning, as you mentioned, into a new artistic director, me. Michael Wright, who's outgoing right now, has had a really wonderful, storied 15-year run leading the company. Before that, the artistic director was a founder of the company for 30 years. So I'll be third. And we were heading into a space of great change and great growth. You know, like everywhere else, Milwaukee's in the middle of a pretty big demographic shift right now, just in terms of its culture, in terms of who is sort of setting a cultural tone in the city. Certainly a lot of wealth redistribution, moving from baby boomers to Gen X and older millennials now, and a really interesting, in Milwaukee at least, influx of diversity into that conversation too. So we're looking as a company at, you know, how we shift to center on that audience without, you know, of course, losing the current audience, but just looking and saying sort of, you know, our current audience is probably going to be with us for anywhere between 5 to 7 more years before they begin, you know, aging out of theater attendance. So how do we begin setting ourselves up for that next generation, that next group of audience members? So that was the plan going into 2021 as we were celebrating Michael's departure, and then the world changed on us.
It did, didn't it? So Michael Wright, fabulous artistic director, friend of mine and yours, a gentleman I've worked with. What's it like now taking over the reins in the situation we have? You know, this is an amazing, like, you know, almost could be like you're running a theater and then all of a sudden this happens. What have been your biggest changes? Because you also have new leadership hiring other than yourself coming up, correct?
We do, yeah. Our previous managing director resigned at the end of September to take another position. The plan for me was to onboard part-time throughout the season, basically just plan the season for 2021, get to sort of know the lay of the land a little bit. But as soon as the managing director stepped down, I basically became the managing director. It's not ever the skill set that I wanted to have, and you know, it's certainly not, I'm not rolling with an MBA or anything. You know, I spent 15 years sitting in very intense LORT budget meetings at Milwaukee Repertory Theaters, so have sort of developed that skill set through a decade and a half of osmosis. But that has held us in pretty good stead. So I've been sort of managing the company's budget all season and doing those sort of basic managing director functions. So it wasn't an immediate shocking change in terms of, oh, who's going to pick up all these things now or anything like that. But it's definitely way more time than I had ever anticipated inside budgets and spreadsheets and writing crisis management emails to trustees. So it's definitely been accessing a whole different skill set, but I will say it's also been the best way to get to know the company at a real DNA level. which I thought I did coming in. Had spent a few months asking what I thought were all the right questions, and figuring out where everything was. But to really have to get in there and to move every penny around and to have to know where it's all coming from and where it's sitting has been a huge asset in terms of understanding the financial parameters of the company looking ahead to next season.
Yeah. I don't envy you, but having been in your position, a jack of all trades and a master of none, that really is the kind of job description of the artistic director. When things fall out, you end up, it takes a village to run a company, no matter how many zeros are in the budget.
Oh, it's absolutely true. It's really true.
Yeah, you got to be able to grab the flaming stick while everybody's juggling if one falls.
Sure.
Now, everybody I've had up until you has been running a summer company, so there's lots of cancellations going on.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as we're in the peak of this right now. What are your plans going into 20? And I know there's going to be a whole lot of I don't knows, and numerous schedules, as you said, and plan A's through Z's. Where are you guys kind of currently at right now? Because a lot of the people that watch this are actors, designers,
mm-hmm.
that are looking to see kind of like, well, what's the plan for everybody? And the nice kind of variety of people that we've been getting, I would like to hear kind of where you guys are at.
Sure, we're assessing. We're a sort of fall, winter, spring theater, but our season also starts, we start rehearsals July 15th for our first show. So we start a little earlier than most of those other companies. So it does feel like I feel like I'm paying attention to a lot of the lessons that the summer theaters are teaching us right now, because, the first show of our season is in the back half of what would be a summer season.
Yeah.
So I don't know yet what we're necessarily doing. I mean, my personal preference is always to wait for more data before making any decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just need more time. We are in Wisconsin, we're certainly way behind where you all are in New York in terms of assessing things and looking at peaks of curves and things like that. But at the same time, there's also not a lot of time on our side because we have subscribers that we have to give a plan to sometime in the next 8 weeks. So this next week actually is when I'm going to really start, now that we have FY20 stabilized, to start figuring out what the options and parameters for FY21 look like. On top of that, we actually, just before I jumped on this call for you, finished an interview call with the potential managing director candidate. So we're also...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're bringing somebody else brand new in right now. And certainly, have a ton of sympathy for that person. I mean, if it's weird for me to be taking over in a pandemic with, 10 months of lead time, that person's going to have 10 minutes to figure out what they need to do. But that's part of it too, because I'm trying to be very conscious of not making any decisions that I'm going to have to hand to this new institutional partner and say, here, make this work. That's not great. But at the same time, depending on how quickly we can get that person in and how quickly they can get onboarded, that may have to happen. So there's so many variables right now, and we're trying to learn as much as we can moment to moment and throw that into the big hopper so that when the time does come to make a decision, we have sort of 4 or 5 different plans loosely in place, and we can just pick up which one is the one we're going to firm up and go forward with.
Yeah. That's a great segue into, if we're looking at something as you're coming up, and I keep, thanks for the reminder, Chamber does start. You are dealing with a lot of the things that the summer theaters are dealing with because your season starts in August, correct?
Yeah, August 15th is supposed to be opening night for the first show.
Which for regional theaters is pretty easy, as they don't bridge that Shakespeare Festival summer theater gap. So as we're kind of looking at a new normal potentially, before we go back to like pre-vaccine or pre whatever we decide will be normal, have you gone over any contingencies? A lot of this is one of the more interesting questions that we ask is, have you gone over like what it would be like to social distance while doing a play, things like that could get things in production sooner, just to be producing live content while safety being the number one priority, I think, for all of us.
Right.
Have you gone over any of that?
A little bit. I mean, we're all pretty clear on what that means for an audience, and the hurdle just seems to be what an audience's appetite or level of trust is to come back.
Yeah.
So from that side of the stage, things feel settled. The The bigger concern I have is just thinking about how you actually do a piece of theater with actors who are practicing social distancing. And that's I have no idea. And we just started in our sort of crisis task force conversation. Was that last week, I think? What even is time anymore? But last week to figure out just to start brainstorming what that might look like, right?
Yeah.
And even before we even get to that point, though, thinking about what our ethical position as a company is, right? Because everyone is sort of saying there's going to be a trough in August or September. We could probably get a production in August or September. People are going to be hungry for it. There's going to be the opportunity for it, and it lines up really nicely with when we're supposed to be doing it anyway. But do we want to do that, right?
Yep.
Is that, in terms of what our responsibility to our community is, as much as we know we want to bring people together in this sort of communal celebration, we need a little healing from the isolation right now. And on the pragmatic side, as much as we know we also need some ticket income into whatever donations we're going to be getting to help tide us over, is doing something that may contribute to a higher inevitable peak in our community a thing that we want to accept?
Yeah.
You know? And so far from the board, that answer's been no, that's not an ethical position that we want to occupy. Counter that then, when it's interesting talking about this new normal notion. People around here are now referring to it as the next normal. And implied in this notion of next normal is that if you want to go and assemble in a group, there's risk involved in that. And you just need to accept that with however you're going to choose to live your life. And that's a notion that I can't really even begin to wrap my head around personally, let alone thinking about what it means as an institutional leader. But right now we're sort of sitting on that ethical question and just trying to figure out where as a company we stand in terms of whatever we know today, right, about the science, about the guidance from our state government, about the guidance from the federal level. How do we feel ethically as a company about how close we might come to, pushing a boundary on that? And it's been a very thoughtful conversation, I'm happy to say, from the board, and people who are really owning that on a deep personal level. Has been really heartening to engage in that kind of conversation in all this.
Yeah, it's interesting, having postponed a production here in New York and moved it into the 2021, and then a full cancellation of Hope Rep's summer season. This has come up a lot, and I've always said, I go, the choice is easy, health over money. It's the decision that is hard.
Yep. Yeah, we had the same conversation last week. The choices are all very easy and very clear.
No, you always go,
decisions are all very hard. Yep.
Over money, but then you go, how do we do it?
How do we do it?
It's the jumping off the high dive. Now, you talked about your online programming. You're sitting here as part of our online programming, which is, pretty vast right now. But you've talked about some pretty cool things, and I watched something really cool last night at an hour we won't talk about. Why don't you take this time to plug anything online you got going on?
Yeah,
because everybody's hungry for content, and I would love people to see what you got going on in Milwaukee Chamber.
Yeah, we're trying as hard as we can to really put a very human face on this whole situation, right? And to help people get to know their artists. So we're doing a series of conversations with artists every day at noon, sort of little lunchtime chats, we're calling them, where we're getting with people for half an hour every day, and just talking about the show they were going to do, what they're excited about, where they are as an artist right now, where they are in the world right now, to just keep a little conversation around theater going. We're starting to host readings from some of our, again, smaller non-ec companies. In addition to supporting local artists, we're also about nurturing the next generation. So that's a really strong mission fit, trying to use our platform to get them a little more recognition and notoriety. Hosting a virtual piano bar every Friday night that people can
Steve Watts. We got to plug
guy
Steve
named Steve Watts. No, Steve Watts is amazing. I mean, is one of the...
And a Titan alum, Steve Watts. And I'm pretty sure Angelique Iannone, who you did a play reading of, another
we're going to do
alum.
We're going to do 4 of hers, actually. So one last week, and then one this week, and then 2 more coming. Yeah, but no, I mean, Steve Watts is one of the most singularly talented musicians I have ever seen, and it's great. So join us on our Facebook page, Milwaukee Chamber Theater, Friday nights at 8 o'clock Central Time, and enjoy a couple hours of some of the most amazing piano bar work you've ever seen.
Yeah, he is pretty brilliant. He was in our production of Macbeth, our very first production ever. Steve Washington. So
Nice.
there you go. It's
kill
small
it.
world after all.
Yeah,
all right,
but
keep
then
going. Sorry.
but also trying to figure out ways in which we can deviate from that, right? So what is the service we're providing right now? What's the conversation we're providing? How do we, while respecting the very serious situation that we are in, continue to give people reasons to, I don't know, to feel some optimism, some sense of community. So we started this thing. We just launched the first one called Drunk Dramaturgy.
That's when I was watching at the wee hours of the morning last night.
Which is a very intentional riff on Drunk History, which is a show that I love. I wanted to do this thing for a few years, and it just never seemed to come together. And then thought, well, why not now? And
the idea of Drunk Dramaturgy is this de-elitization of theater, and that the way that we like argue about sports and stats and the stuff that we can get really passionate about, like Harry Potter novels, we can make theater something that everybody gets to have an opinion about.
Drunk Dramaturgy, not only is the alliteration really fun, watching three dramaturgs just go at it, I did not know could be so entertaining.
I'm glad.
And to piggyback what you said, we need to smile. I know the situation is serious, but we have to be able to laugh still, because it will only help. So you're right. Taking the situation seriously while still providing content that can make us go, "That's damn funny," is important. Which is kind of a great segue into the next question as we get into the last two. I grill you for about a half an hour. I ask you this one, and then the last one you get to ask me, which with you, knowing you so well, makes me a little nervous. But right now, this is one of my favorite questions to ask because it's artsy-fartsy. What play, I know you have your season pick, so it's just hypothetical now. If you could do one play right now, what would it be?
Yeah. I mean, the knee-jerk sort of respond to the moment is, I think, Mr. Burns, right? But I still got, we're supposed to start our season with Passing Strange, and that one for me still feels like the right one for the community of Milwaukee right now in this particular moment. So I'm gonna stick with that one.
Wow.
Because there
All
is,
right. Yeah.
because there is so much of a universal human journey in there, and it really is about who are we as human beings. And I think at the core of this conversation about how we are managing our own communities right now and how we are caring for them is a very strong question about who we are as individuals. In this situation, what did you do? There was this meme that was floating around Facebook a few weeks ago, right, of like the old 1940s drawing of like, dad sitting in the chair with his newspaper and kid on his lap and like daughter coloring or something, and the kid asked him a question like, what did you do during the pandemic, Dad? And there's all sorts of tongue-in-cheek responses like smoked out and played Xbox, and and the daughter's little thought bubble response is like, oh, hero. But I do think we're asking those questions about ourselves right now. Our board president put it really well right before we closed up our office, actually, and said that for those of us who have the luxury to indulge the time, that the situation is giving us all plenty of time to think about not only what it means to be human, but also what kind of human beings we want to be. And I think, that's our job as theater makers, to help people have that conversation. And Passing Strange, for me, there's such a sense of individual identity in the middle of that play that I think everybody can relate to and hook on to. And it's just a good moment to continue asking questions about who we are in the world, Yeah. Plus, It's just so good. And the music is so amazing.
When, private conversations, when you were talking to me about that, I was like, yeah, he's going to sit in that seat rather nicely. Great. All right. I grilled you for what will be edited down to roughly 30 to 40 minutes, when realistically it's about an hour. So you get to ask me one question, and I will answer it as honestly as I possibly can. It could be theater related. It could be anything you want.
So what is in your most realistic assessment right now?
Mhm.
When does theater come back, whatever that means to you?
Wow. Yeah, I knew it would be you that stumped me a good one. Let's go. There's optimistically and realistically. Let's go with both. Okay. Optimistic. I'm hoping for, because we are a smaller house, that is one of the benefits in New York. I think we'll be able to open before Broadway does. I'm hoping optimistically for a small cast fall show that can be socially distanced in the audience. Realistic. Realistically, we're looking at options of how to do a Christmas Carol virtually to make sure we don't take that away from our community when it means so much to them. That was brought up this morning in a leadership meeting. If we can't get Christmas Carol on its feet, something that has become a tradition in New York, which when everybody told me, having grown up in Milwaukee and at the Milwaukee Rep, everybody, when I was like, we need to bring Christmas Carol here, it's going to sell like crazy. And they're like, New York doesn't want that. And I was like, I bet you they do.
Everybody wants
so
that.
we were right. Everybody wants it. And it's great. Dickens is like Shakespeare, obviously two amazing writers. It came up today going, if we can't get it on its feet, how are we still going to do it? Because the community relies on it to make them, especially if this is still somehow as serious as it is now, it will always be serious. But peaking the way it does now during the holiday season, we're going to need to provide something like that. So yeah, realistically, we're looking at winter.
That's good. That's way more optimistic than I'm feeling right now. So I'm glad.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Everybody that I've talked to, I mean, Sandy Robbins, episode 1, said we're lucky if we get 2021 in.
That's how I'm thinking right now.
Yeah. And we have friends, full disclosure, on the episode that are going, you should be looking at 2022.
Yep.
When it gets back to the place where human beings can safely congregate without any concerns.
Yeah.
That means vaccine.
Right. Well, and even that's, I mean, best case, that's 4 years off, right? I mean, the quickest vaccine that has ever happened in human history is 4 years. And
no, you're right.
I mean, maybe we better that by 6 months.
Yeah, maybe.
But it's tough. And then of course you get into that question of how, because I'm thinking of that same thing right now, right? Like because even if there is that trough in August or September, we're going to be coming back with flu season. Everything is going to get quiet and shut down. And here, at least, where winter lasts until Memorial Day, there's not going to be a lot of seasonal relief from that either. So it feels like the first thing that's going to happen is all the summer companies, at least in our area, are going to get their 21 season in, and all of the sort of fall, winter, springs are going to have to start looking at 21, 22 after tiding themselves over in whatever way they can for the better part of the year. I mean, look, I hope that doesn't happen because I have no idea where to even begin thinking about how to keep a virtual theater company alive for a year. And then how you just sort of rebuild from that the next year. But I'm going to continue to live in your fall, winter optimism, and hope that we get here too.
Yeah, you know, hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Yes.
You know,
a career in the theater.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the way the theater is anyway. Now we're doing the impossible in an impossible situation when the impossible was pretty impossible before it was impossible. Write that down.
Yes.
Write that down.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. But I also think that is a great way to end a great conversation with a great friend. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank everybody who is watching today for their time. Brent, I can't thank you enough, sir. Thank you for sharing your afternoon with us.
No, my pleasure, Lenny. So delighted to be invited. And yeah, anytime you want to jump on a screen and pretend we know what we're talking about, I'm happy to do it.
Exactly. Well, that's what editing's for. We'll make sure that I will, with you and I in particular, there'll be some heavy editing, but
No doubt.
But I adore you, my dear friend, and
Likewise.
I will talk to you soon. Take care, and take care, everybody at home. Until the next episode. Bye.